Alright everyone, there was a recent article by Slate that mentions me, which is why I'm interested in covering it, but it's basically a smear attack on gab.ai, they've had a problem in the last 24 hours as well with a post that was made on their site. I'll cover that briefly. Okay, in brief, basically Anglin himself posted something off color. They asked him to remove it. Anglin got self-righteous, and then we all found out, oh yeah, Gab was leaned on by their domain registrar. That's why they had a fucking problem with it. They weren't just trying to screw him over. That's how he took it, but he does that anyway. Like, he has a persecution complex, I think, at this point. And some of it's, he is a little bit, or his site, certainly. I think they had to move to Onion or something like that, like Tor, to the dark web in order to continue functioning. So I can understand that, but Gab's trying to protect itself while it's still in its infancy and not screw, 250,000 other people. He, I guess, expected that they should bend over backwards and cover his ass, despite this complaint, and screw everybody else on the platform when Gab has to find a new home. Obviously, they're not willing to do that. Yeah, I wonder why. But back to the Slate article, since that's really a non-issue at this point. It's cleared up to my standards. Gab has explained itself to the standards that I apply to a free speech-loving site. On the topic of Slate, though, it's a little different. Slate tries to label Gab like a Nazi site, like it's the alt-right, it's the alt-right version of Facebook. Now, number one, it has nothing to do with Facebook. It's essentially like Twitter. I don't know why you would think it looked like Facebook, because it clearly doesn't. Number two, it's not an alt-right site, it's a libertarian site. That is, that it limits the amount of censorship to the bare minimum. Number three, it's not an echo chamber. If you spend enough time on it, you'll realize there's a pretty strict delineation between those that are on it that are more libertarian, those that are more religious, like evangelical, and those that are, identitarian or something. But that doesn't make it an echo chamber. It's going to be filled with progressives at some point. Because those people increasingly, and they haven't realized it yet, they're the next to get censored. Everyone else who's already, like, on Gab or alt-tech is already, subject to some censorship. When you realize that you making a video response to somebody who's saying something that the centrists would find offensive gets you banned as well, you'll be using sites like Gab and BitChute and VidMe and stuff like that. And trust me, they will. They'll come aboard by the millions. And these sites will be much more fleshed out. And trust me, at that point, no one can call them an echo chamber. What Slate and other sites are trying to doing is label them far-right so people who are being censored and they're leftists won't join up with them. They're terrified of the idea of a totally new wave of tech that might be so decentralized and so libertarian in form that it's impossible to actually censor anything. Oh, they're fucking terrified of that. They have the same structural advantages that early social media did before a period of censorship there. That's what they're afraid of. They're afraid of their power denigrating further. Like some of these legacy media sites are barely making the leap to like YouTube. They're barely making the leap into sites that have existed for 10 fucking years. So yeah, they're worried about that being supplanted as soon as they get on these platforms. It would be the death knell for them. They would not recover. They would lose so much of their audience. They'd lose millions and millions of people. They probably will anyway. They're concerned about their future. It's all fiscal. Another reason why alt-tech is growing, and this is not mentioned, use your brain, Slate. Think about it this way. Those who are large and in charge in political and social discourse, a lot of them make quite a bit of money doing what they're doing. This may not be their only mode of income, but it is a good mode of income. They like the competition. In my case, it's more about, I want to compete. I just want to talk. I don't take ad revenue, so I take crowdfunding. It's not my main income. My main income is books. That's online too, though. It's through Amazon, so it is what it is. If somebody feels like they're in danger of being totally at a loss, like they get kicked off of every platform because they said one off-color thing and a bunch of easily offended pink-haired freaks showed up to try to raid them. If somebody feels, even if it's never going to happen, even if they're not on anyone's radar, or they would be, but they've done nothing wrong, so they actually are not kicked off anything, they're still going to develop a presence elsewhere if they think that that's the case. It's all about perception. In their case, it's more about money or power, fame, something like that in many cases. For some of us, it's about we promote liberty. We're trying to put it out there, and we don't want to get interrupted in being able to deliver our message to people. And I know others. I've spoken with a lot of large creators. Some of them they understand this concept. They're trying to change the world for the better. I fully believe that. Not everybody that you perceive of as necessarily being like greedy and they rub their hands together and think, oh, look at all the money I'm making. No, they're not all like that. Some probably are. I'm not going to name names, but most of them, they're in it for other reasons, more noble reasons. But here's the thing. When they start branching out, their fans start branching out. Some of these people have millions and millions of fans. That's feeding alt media. Not all these people are part of some right-wing echo chamber. Now, as for me, they correctly identify me as a libertarian, but then they say I'm an far-right video blogger. Now, video blogger, I thought the term was vlogger. That's, the new way of saying it. It's rad and cool and hip and epic and awesome. I don't know if you've heard this term. You can compress it into one word, so you might want to try doing that. I am hardly far right unless you think that anyone to the right of Karl Marx is far right. No, I'm not. I'm a libertarian. On social issues, you'd probably find me to be a progressive, which is really, really funny. Because I don't care if people get a gay marriage, smoke weed. I don't care if they transgender themselves. It's shit to me what they do with their personal lives, because I'm a monarchist. I believe in limited government, non-abuse, non-aggression principle. I would only be far right on a handful of issues. Like, guns are great. I think people should own more of them. Taxes are a bad thing. They strangulate private development and they should be severely reduced. That's not a far right platform. It's really not. And I disagree with censorship. Right now, the people being censored tend to be on the right. So when I defend against censorship, people assume I'm on the far right too. If it was a bunch of commies and socialists getting censored, they would probably think I was on the far left. It's just the way that it works. People are too limited in their thinking. I guess this particular journalist at Slate has the same problem. I appreciate the mention. It's going to get me more subscribers. That'll be fun. But it is a smear article against Gab, largely. Gab is not the Nazi Facebook. It has nothing in common with Facebook, and it's not an echo chamber of the far right anyway. It's just those are the people that tend to be or feel they're being censored more. A lot of the early users were they were kicked off Twitter, so they were using Gab like Twitter. It's a Twitter replacement, not a Facebook replacement. You're thinking of Minds. Minds is the Facebook replacement. And who's top on Minds? Oh, it's Sargon. Sargon, who's hardly far right. Sargon, who's basically a classical liberal. In fact, I'd say he's a little bit to the left of classical liberal. Honestly. He's top on Minds. And where's the echo chamber? Yeah, Styx and Lauren Southern and some of these people, they have a presence there. Must be far right. I'm not far right. Most of the people you consider far right aren't. They're nowhere near far right. Some of these people, they're like smoke weed every day and stuff like that. You've got a big problem with that, apparently. It's funny because the left has become like the prohibition party and the pro-war movement and the pro-surveillance, pro-proxy conflict, pro-censorship. You indeed are like the old right that you used to fight against and say, oh, these evil right-wingers. You're like the Bush-era right-wingers now, like the evangelocons of the year. You're like Rick Santorum. Today's Democratic Party reminds me more of fucking Rick Santorum than anything else. That's how far you've fallen. And all of your legacy media outlets are not going to change the slow movement of society away from your outdated views. It's progress. Hey, we're progressives now. We're the ones that are being progressive because we're fighting against bullshit censorship. We're fighting against deplatforming people who ultimately make totally friggin' mundane content. They say one thing that is construed as offensive by people who are morons. All of a sudden they come under attack and they make some tearful apology. Guess what? There are those of us, no matter what you had a problem with what we're saying, we would never apologize to you because you don't deserve it. That's the way it's going to be, by the way. Yeah, you never see any apology video for me. Never on my content. That's a vow to you. Never see it. I don't care how offended people would get. My content's not... If you're offended by the concept of freedom, yeah, you probably have a problem with me. At least they correctly identified that I was a libertarian. Otherwise, though, this article, 9/10 of it is just Gab is filled with fascists. Gab is filled with evil people. No, it's not. Did you bother to use Gab, or did you just get this second hand, or from some progressive that decided to go there and trigger themselves repeatedly as part of their general sexualized ritual process? That's probably what happened. No, they're not far right. I've never had a problem there. Yeah, there are people who have debated me on various points there because I'm a libertarian. That's going to happen anywhere. That's the way the internet works. So when did we get to the point at which being challenged in your beliefs was considered to be a bad thing? I'm perfectly comfy with that. You realize how much hate mail I get every day? I get all sorts of people telling me all sorts of crazy things. Who cares? They're within their rights to say that. They're not threatening to come blow my head off usually anymore, so I don't care. They can call me a freak or a weirdo all they want. I can call other people that too. Some people have a bigger problem than others. Some people have very, very thin skin. Mostly neoliberals. They have very, very thin skin. They have thin skin because they become the new moralists. They're in the spirit of Tipper Gore right now, not the spirit of Bernie Sanders or something like that. Wonder why he was rejected. Was he not anti-gun enough for your sensitivities? Oh, self-defense is a bad thing. You should just lubricate your buttocks anytime you are attacked, for all it's worth. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. No, Gab and Minds, BitChute, VidMe, all these alt-tech sort of movements, they're not echo chambers. Anyone can join up. You're on the left, you can join them. Nobody's going to kick you off. There's no censorship there. That's the whole fucking point. Because we want an internet that's not censored. It would be lovely if all these older, bigger firms like YouTube and Google itself, and Facebook and stuff would say, okay, we're taking a hands-off approach. You know, we're not going down this path. It's going to destabilize the net. So we're pledging to people. We're not going to censor anything that's not like criminal or, you know, like hardcore porn or something like that. Anymore. We're not interested in policing it. It's too expensive. Number one, takes too much time. Number two, number three, we're U.S. firms, so we're going to be with the spirit of freedom generally here. That would be lovely. Then there would be no alt-tech startups, by the way, because there'd be no use for them. Unfortunately, those sites have pledged themselves to extremely heavy-handed censorship, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't have a problem with this because they themselves are not yet being censored. When you actually come under censorship, which you will, I guarantee you, in time, you will. You'll see that it's a corporatist movement. This is not a pro-moralist, pro-decency, pro-leave each other alone and stop harassing each other sort of thing. This is a corporate move. People need to understand that. This is pure corporatism. The neoliberals are a corporatist movement. These big tech firms are corporations. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily evil, but certainly the profit motive is what's driving their pro-censorship behavior. Not a feeling of moral integrity. When they go into their boardroom, they're not saying, oh, we want to be cutesy and lovely and very user-friendly and we want people to be nice to each other. That's not what's being said. What's being said is, oh, these ad firms are going to flee us if we don't become more family-friendly. That's all it's about. That's all it's ever been about. Why do you think there was an adpocalypse? So no. Slate is totally wrong about Gab. They're half right about me, at least. I'm glad to be mentioned in their article. It was wonderful. It was fun. But I'm not far right. The people on the far right typically have a problem with me because I'm like, well, I don't care if gays get married and they smoke weed at the same time. So that's just the truth of the matter. You know, I have problems with the far left too because I think that I'm far right, I guess. Well, that's really funny. So the far right thinks that I'm too far left and the far left thinks that I'm too far right. I think I'm in that sweet spot where I've got common sense. Yeah, I think it's great. That's about all. Peace out.